Love or attachment? The hidden truth that causes suffering. What if everything you thought was love was actually attachment? What if the deep emotions, the longing, and even the joy you feel in relationships are not signs of love but of clinging? Here's a shocking truth. Most people mistake attachment for love, and as a result, they experience more suffering than happiness. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, yet so many of us unknowingly build our relationships around it. In today's video on Zen Buddhism wisdom, we will uncover the hidden difference between love and attachment. You will learn how to recognize when you are clinging rather than loving, and most importantly, how to cultivate a love that is free, peaceful, and truly fulfilling. Stay with us until the end, because understanding this could completely transform the way you love and connect with others. Let's dive in. In the heart of an ancient Zen monastery, a revered master once presented his students with a delicate butterfly, its wings shimmering under the morning sun. He gently placed it on his open palm and asked, "What is the best way to keep this butterfly with me forever?" One student eagerly replied, "You must build a cage, so it can never escape." Another said, "Tie a silk thread to its wings, so even if it flies away, it will always return." The master smiled but said nothing. Instead, he closed his hand around the butterfly. At first, it fluttered desperately, seeking freedom. Then, as the master's grip tightened, the fluttering ceased. When he opened his palm again, the butterfly lay lifeless. Its wings crushed, the students gasped in realization. The master then turned to them and said, "Love, when caged, is no longer love. When tethered, it is no longer free. To truly love is to cherish, not to control. If I had simply let the butterfly rest, it would have stayed for as long as it wished. And even if it had flown away, its beauty would have remained in my heart forever." This lesson is not just about butterflies, it is about human relationships. Love is not about possession, it is about presence. True love is an open sky where souls can soar, not a cage where they wither. Throughout history, we have seen the tragic consequences of mistaking attachment for love. Take the story of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first ruler of unified China. Obsessed with immortality, he sought to hold on to life with an iron grip, consuming mercury-laced elixirs in a desperate attempt to defy death. In his fear of losing what he cherished, he hastened his own demise. His empire outlived him, but his name became a symbol of the suffering caused by an insatiable desire to control the uncontrollable. The same principle applies to relationships. The more we cling to someone, the more we push them away. Love, when bound by chains of fear and possession, loses its warmth and becomes suffocating. True love is a river, ever flowing, unrestricted. It is a songbird that sings because it is free, not because it is trapped. To love is to understand that nothing belongs to us, not people, not moments, not even ourselves. The beauty of life lies in its impermanence, in the gentle embrace of a fleeting moment. If we can learn to hold love like the master held the butterfly, with reverence, yet without force, we will discover a love that is eternal, not because it does not change, but because it is free to do so. The nature of attachment is deeply intertwined with the human condition. We crave permanence in a world that is fundamentally impermanent. This paradox is the root of suffering, as described in the second noble truth. Suffering, dukkha, arises from craving, tanha, and attachment, upadana. To truly understand attachment, we must examine how it operates in our minds. Why do we cling? We grasp at relationships, possessions, and even identities because they give us a sense of self. We say, "This is my partner, my career, my home, my reputation." But who is the me that possesses these things? The Buddha taught that this self is an illusion, a construct of the mind that constantly changes. When we attach our happiness to something impermanent, we set ourselves up for inevitable suffering. History has countless examples of powerful figures who, despite their wealth and influence, were consumed by attachment. One striking case is Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the Roman philosopher king. Despite being one of the most powerful rulers in history, he deeply understood the fleeting nature of life. In his meditations, he wrote, "The things you think you own, in reality, own you." Yet, his son Commodus, who inherited the throne, did not share this wisdom. Commodus was obsessed with his status, clinging to power through cruelty and excess. He believed that the empire was his possession, that his rule was eternal. But what happened? His attachment led to paranoia, betrayal, and ultimately, his assassination. His desperate grasping destroyed him, just as a clenched fist crushes the delicate wings of a butterfly. In personal relationships, attachment often masquerades as love. Imagine a person who constantly demands reassurance from their partner, fearing abandonment. They mistake their anxiety for love, believing that if they hold on tightly enough, they can prevent loss. But love that is built on fear is not love, it is dependence. Psychologists call this attachment anxiety, a pattern where people equate closeness with security. The more they fear losing someone, the more possessive and controlling they become. Ironically, this very behavior drives people away, reinforcing their fears. This cycle is precisely what the Buddha warned against. The root of suffering is attachment. True love is not about owning another person. It is about honoring their freedom. It is not about demanding presence, it is about cherishing it while it lasts. Zen Buddhism offers a powerful metaphor for love, a bird resting on your palm. If you close your fingers tightly, the bird will struggle and eventually suffocate. If you keep your hand open, the bird may stay, or it may fly away, but either way, you have not caused suffering. When we love with attachment, we try to control and possess. But when we love with wisdom, we appreciate without clinging. This is the essence of non-attachment, not the absence of love, but the purification of love. The Buddha never said, "Do not love." He simply taught us to love without grasping. To love without fear, to love without the need to possess. Because only in letting go can we experience love in its truest, most profound form. Attachment and true love may look similar on the surface, but their essence is entirely different. Attachment stems from fear, from the desperate need to possess, from the illusion that another person can complete us. True love, on the other hand, arises from a place of wholeness, from the ability to give without expecting, from the wisdom that nothing and no one can ever be owned. Imagine a person who constantly demands their partner's time and attention. If they don't receive an immediate response to a message, anxiety creeps in. Doubts arise: do they still love me? Are they losing interest? This person may convince themselves that their behavior is proof of love, that needing someone this intensely is a sign of devotion. But in truth, this is not love, it is fear disguised as love. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of being alone. When love is built on fear, it suffocates. History provides us with tragic examples of this confusion. Consider King Henry VIII of England. He was infamous for his obsessive need to control his wives, mistaking dominance for love. His attachment was so extreme that when his affections changed, he discarded and even executed those he once claimed to love. Anne Boleyn, his second wife, was once the great love of his life. He defied the Catholic Church to marry her. But his love was conditional, based on possession and personal gain. When she failed to give him a son, his attachment turned to resentment, and he sentenced her to death. This is the fate of love tainted by attachment. It destroys the very thing it clings to. Now, contrast this with a love that is truly free. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a story of a wise monk and his beloved student. The student admired the monk deeply, always seeking his approval, always wanting to be near him. One day, the monk told him, "You must leave this monastery and never return." The student was devastated. He believed he had done something wrong, that he was being cast out. Years later, after much suffering and contemplation, he realized the truth: his attachment to the monk had been preventing him from growing. The monk had sent him away not out of cruelty, but out of love, the kind of love that does not cling, but allows the other to become their fullest self. This is the nature of true love. It does not demand, it does not imprison, it does not fear loss. Instead, it rejoices in the happiness of the beloved, even if that happiness does not include us. It embraces impermanence, knowing that everything in life flows like a river, ever changing, never stagnant. So, ask yourself, does my love bring peace, or does it bring anxiety? Do I love with an open hand, or do I cling with a closed fist? The answer to these questions will reveal whether what you feel is love or attachment. Transforming attachment into true love is not an easy task, but it is a path that leads to profound freedom and peace. It requires us to shift our entire way of seeing love, not as something to possess, but as something to give. The Buddha, through his wisdom, provided us with a clear path to make this transformation, and countless spiritual masters, philosophers, and even historical figures have demonstrated its power in practice. Many people misunderstand non-attachment, believing it means indifference or emotional detachment. But in truth, non-attachment is the highest form of love. It is love that remains steady, unshaken by circumstances, because it is free from the need to control. A mother who clings to her child, insisting they follow her every command, does not love freely, she loves possessively. But a mother who supports her child's growth, even when it means letting them go, loves with wisdom. The famous Indian emperor Ashoka, who once ruled with an iron fist, learned this lesson the hard way. After witnessing the suffering caused by his own conquests, he turned to Buddhism and abandoned his attachment to power and control. Instead of ruling with fear, he ruled with compassion, establishing hospitals, animal shelters, and places of meditation. His transformation from a ruthless conqueror to a benevolent ruler exemplifies the shift from attachment to true love, not only in personal relationships but in how we interact with the world. If there is one truth that governs all things, it is impermanence. Everything we love will one day change, and if we do not accept this, we will suffer endlessly. Many people enter relationships believing that love should remain the same forever, but this is an illusion. Love is like a river, it is always flowing, always shifting, never stagnant. Take, for example, the great Japanese haiku poet Matsuo Basho. His poetry often reflected the fleeting beauty of life, as he deeply understood impermanence. One of his most famous haikus reads, "An old pond, a frog jumps in, the sound of water." This simple moment captures the truth of change. The stillness of the pond is momentarily disturbed. Yet it continues to exist, embracing the movement. When we embrace impermanence, we stop resisting change, and in doing so, we stop suffering when love takes new forms. The practice of metta, or loving kindness, is a direct antidote to attachment. It teaches us to love unconditionally, without expecting anything in return. This is the kind of love the Buddha himself embodied, love that is not limited by conditions, not bound by selfish desires. One of the most moving examples of this love can be found in the story of Mahakassapa, one of the Buddha's closest disciples. When the Buddha passed away, many of his followers were devastated. But Mahakassapa did not cling to sorrow. Instead, he honored the Buddha's teachings by continuing to spread wisdom, ensuring that the Dharma would live on. He understood that true love is not about attachment to a physical presence but about cherishing and continuing the essence of that love in action. True love cannot exist without inner peace. If our happiness depends on another person, we will always be at the mercy of their actions. But if we cultivate peace within, our love becomes steady, unshaken by external circumstances. One of the greatest examples of inner peace leading to true love is Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master. Even in exile from his homeland, he never responded with anger. Instead, he taught mindfulness and peace to the world. He understood that love is not about clinging to what we have lost, but about sharing the best of ourselves with all beings. in the end, transforming attachment into true love is about choosing wisdom over fear, compassion over control, and inner peace over external dependence. It is about recognizing that love, in its purest form, is not something we hold on to, it is something we become. As the man trudged forward, the weight of the raft began to wear him down. His shoulders ached, his pace slowed, and every step became a struggle. He encountered hills that were harder to climb, dense woods where the raft snagged on branches, and narrow paths where its bulk made movement nearly impossible. Yet, despite the growing burden, he clung to it. He believed that because it had once been useful, it must remain valuable forever. How often do we do the same in our lives? A relationship that once brought us joy but now suffocates us. A belief that once guided us but now blinds us. A past success we refuse to let go of, fearing that without it, we are nothing. We carry these things like the man carries the raft. Convinced that holding on keeps us safe, when in truth, it only holds us back, the Buddha used this parable to illustrate the nature of clinging. He taught that just as the raft was meant to help the man cross the river, certain teachings, possessions, or even emotions serve a temporary role in our lives. But once their purpose is fulfilled, wisdom lies in releasing them. The danger is not in using the raft, it is in refusing to let go when it is no longer needed. History is filled with examples of those who failed to release their rafts. Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first ruler to unify China, sought immortality, believing that his power could defy the laws of nature. He consumed mercury-laden elixirs, desperately clinging to the illusion that he could hold on to life indefinitely. But instead of securing eternal rule, his obsession led to his untimely death. His inability to accept impermanence, the greatest river we all must cross, became his downfall. Conversely, the most enlightened individuals understood the art of letting go. When Mahatma Gandhi fought for India's independence, he wielded power, influence, and mass support. But unlike so many leaders before him, he did not cling to authority. He relinquished power willingly, stepping away once his purpose was served, embracing simplicity instead of grasping at control. In doing so, he remained free, unburdened by the weight of attachment that had trapped so many before him. The man in the parable could have set the raft down at any moment. He could have walked freely, unencumbered, experiencing his journey with lightness instead of struggle. But his mind, like ours so often does, whispered a dangerous lie: what if you need it again? And so, he chose suffering over freedom. This is the choice we all face. Do we continue dragging the remnants of the past, carrying burdens that serve no purpose? Or do we dare to release them, trusting that whatever lies ahead does not require us to be weighed down? True wisdom is not in clinging, it is in knowing when to let go. Imagine waking up every day with a heart that loves freely, without fear, without control, without suffering. No more clinging, no more anxiety, just pure, peaceful love that flows like a river, untouched by attachment. The truth is, the way we love determines the happiness we experience. Love rooted in attachment will always bring suffering, but love grounded in wisdom brings true freedom. Now is the time to shift your perspective. Start by observing your relationships. Are you holding on too tightly, or are you allowing love to breathe? Choose one small action today: practice letting go, embrace impermanence, or simply express love without expectation. We are building a mindful community of seekers on Zen Buddhism wisdom, exploring the depths of Buddhist philosophy to transform our lives. Join us by subscribing and sharing your thoughts below. How has attachment shaped your experiences with love? Let's create a ripple effect of wisdom and compassion together. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more insights that will awaken your heart and mind, because true love is not about holding on, it's about setting yourself and others free.